Welcome to the Frontline Innovation Podcast, the voice of problem solvers. Innovation isn't just about ideals. It's about dismantling the barriers that stand between people and the solutions they actually need. This is where real human problems collide with real-world constraints, where innovators don't chase hype. They study people, break problems apart, and build solutions that actually work. Because the hardest part of innovation isn't creating something new. It's building useful fixes to people's problems and getting it into their hands. Each episode, we go inside that journey with leaders, designers, builders, and problem solvers doing the hard, often invisible work of making innovation real. I'm your host, William Reed. Let's get to work dismantling human problems. Welcome back to the Frontline Innovation Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Chadwick Denman, a sleep specialist and founder of Sleep Cycle Center. He turned a deeply personal loss into a mission to transform how the condition of sleep apnea is understood, diagnosed, and treated. With a background spanning exercise physiology, dentistry, and sleep medicine, Dr. Denman is helping reimagine sleep care through more personalized, patient-centered approaches. In this conversation, we go beyond symptoms and into systems, exploring how better understanding and better delivery can truly change and extend lives. Let's get into it. All right, man. I appreciate you taking time out with me today, Dr. Denman.
Thank you for having me on your show too. This is a great topic today. I think it'll really work well with many of your members.
I know, because I started Frontline Innovation, I kept thinking about the actual person on the other side who got some type of problem that they don't know where to look. So I'm always interested in these problem solvers, I call them. When you start to talk about innovation, it's like somebody went out there and heard of a problem, saw something, and stopped and said, you know what, I want to do something about it. So when I met you a couple years ago, I was having sleep apnea problems as well. So had a couple different things that you guys offered here, which was impressive. So I really said, you know what, I got to have Dr. Denman come on here and talk to my audience about what he's working on.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I think to better understand the landscape, I can definitely tell you how I got involved in this. So probably about close to 15 years ago, I lost my dad to a disease called obstructive sleep apnea. The entire time I was growing up as a kid, I listened to him snore across the house. A lot of times he'd wake me up. And it's just something that's really common. A lot of people think snoring is something that is normal. What snoring is, it's where the structures get too close together. And those structures can be in your nose, in the back of your throat, or in between your tongue and the roof of your mouth. So when those structures get too close together, they vibrate together, and that causes the audible noise that you hear called snoring. It's the stopping in snoring that we're most worried about. If it's a continuous snore, a lot of times that's just a narrowing. Sometimes it can still get enough oxygen, but it's the total collapse that is the obstructive sleep apnea. So what happens with that? And it ends up causing interruptions in breathing. Those interruptions in breathing can be 10 seconds to a minute and a half. And the longer the sessions that you go without breathing, the more the oxygen concentration in your blood drops. So the reason why that is so damaging is when it gets below 95%, which doesn't take much of the concentration in your blood, your brainstem that monitors your vitals at night will signal your adrenal glands to release cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone that'll speed up the pulse rate to circulate more of that oxygenated blood to lift those levels back up. And that happens 5 to 14 times per hour. That's mild sleep apnea, believe it or not. Okay. If it happens 15 to 29 times per hour, then that's moderate sleep apnea, and 30 times per hour or more is considered severe sleep apnea. So when the heart has to pick up the load all night, 20 years of that process is how people develop heart arrhythmias. Actually, 90% of people with heart arrhythmias also have sleep apnea. And then we look at people in memory care. These days, Alzheimer's and dementia are being talked a lot about in the news. And in the memory care facilities, 90% of those also have sleep apnea. So there's a direct correlation between your body's system shutting down early if you're not getting the oxygen that you need at night. And the reason for that, just a really quick overview, is like as that oxygen debt happens, the heart has to pick up the load. When the heart increases the pulse rate or the oxygen gets too low, then that pulls you out of the deeper levels of sleep, and that causes your body to not do the reparative function it's supposed to. So that reparative function might be your red blood cells every 90 days, your muscle, all the muscle in your body turns over on an annual basis. Your bone about every 3 years. But really consider that we've got kidneys, gallbladder, liver, and all of those cells have to turn over, and they do that in the deeper levels of sleep. And if you're not getting enough time there, then the body's not efficient at replacing those. And that's why people from this disease pass away at 8 to 20 years early. My dad's story was he developed a heart arrhythmia. That heart arrhythmia was undiagnosed. It turned into tachycardia, and no one was there to shock his heart back in rhythm. It was a big blow to our family. He was the first person in our family to pass away 20 years earlier than normal. I guess the silver lining into this is I didn't know I had the disease at the time. So I got a CPAP, which most people that get into this pipeline of patient care get. I felt like I was suffocating instead of, plenty of air like a lot of people would think. And I always wondered why. And I moved on to the next treatment option, which is an oral device that repositions the jaw and holds your airway open at night so that you can get, correct breathing. I felt a lot better after I was treated. The issue I was still having is exercising and keeping up with people my age was a little bit difficult. And I always wondered why. We started sending people that failed the CPAP for imaging, CT image, to be able to see what is the cause of this. And so you usually would come back if they didn't mark, I don't like cleaning this every day, or I can't get used to the mask. If it was, I feel like I'm suffocating, or I can't get enough air, or the pressure's too high. All of those people either had a deviated septum, the turbinates in their nose were enlarged, or they had a sinus infection. So we moved, instead of sending all these people to an imaging center, we invested in our patients. We bought a CT computer imaging called a CBCT. It's really accurate at diagnosing and helping us along that process. But it's really used as a great tool to educate our patients. So in the landscape, one of the things that we could definitely talk about today is what the normal patient experience is if you go to your doctor that refers you to a board-certified sleep physician, and where there's some stopgaps there with treatment. We could talk about how insurance helps, but not really. And we could also talk about where we see this going long-term and how many people in America it does affect, and what percentage of those we're currently treating.
What I really like about this is I think, initially when people hear about a problem, they say, well, just go the regular traditional approach, regular method, go see your doc, like you see, might get a CPAP machine, and you come back 6 months later, and then your family member has the CPAP machine in the closet, not being used anymore for various reasons.
Yes.
And then you just keep seeing this problem over and over again. But let's take a step back to how people actually figure this out, right?
Yes.
So a lot of marriages are having trouble because, hey, one of the persons can't get to sleep, and they pushing on this other person, getting frustrated, like, you can keep me up all night. And we think, we joke about it, they broke up because they sleep in the separate rooms now. And why they sleep in the separate rooms? Just stop snoring.
Yes. Yeah, and it's in America, if we look from birth to death, it impacts at least the national average is 20 to 25%. Above the age of 40, they think it actually affects more people than high blood pressure. So 33% of the population above 40. The reason why I mention that is they call it a 40-year-old's disease. The reason for that is men start seeing it in their 20s and 30s as their testosterone goes down. Without ample amounts of testosterone or the reparative ability of the body, the airway the smooth muscle starts breaking down, the collagen, and so you end up aging quicker. For women, it affects them more around menopause, around 50 years of age. So if men are 30 and women are 50, that's where the 40-year-old age came from. And so most people will get a referral for a sleep study, but the people that are identified that have it in a doctor's office are I call them the squeaky wheel. They're the people, hey, my wife, she keeps complaining, or I get, elbowed by my husband at night because I'm snoring. Everyone else needs to log on and take what's called the stop bang test. It's 8 questions. It's 90% accurate of who has sleep apnea and who doesn't. It's simple to answer. It's either yes or no. If you snore, I recommend a sleep study. If you answer 3 or more yes questions on the stop bang, I recommend a sleep study. And that's free of charge on our website at sleepcyclecenters.com. And so when you go on there, you can click take the test. We can reach out to you to do those tests and then to go over your results. And then in our office, your next visit is actually a little bit different. Instead of, okay, I think you need to take a sleep study, ours get sent home with you in the comfort of your own bed. And so, it's your bed, your environment, your pillow. So we know that this test that we're getting, it's called a WatchPat1, is going to give us the best data possible for your night to night and day to day. The other part that's a little different within the field is most people don't do any imaging before. So what we know about your airway at night is your head and neck muscles relax and your lower jaw slides back. And that sliding back causes a decrease in your airway. And so without being able to see what your airway looks like, both kind of in the nose and in the back of the throat, we don't really know what treatment option is going to be best for you. And that's why it's so imperative, because half the people in America that get a CPAP stop wearing it within the first 90 days. And the reason for that, it is easy to write the prescription, have it delivered to your house, and start trying to wear it. But ultimately, the reason why in America we see so many people not use it is no one told them what they were in for. No one said that you got to clean it every day. You got to order continuing supplies. Those would be masks and hoses. And then they don't walk through like what's going to happen when you put it on at night and what's it going to feel like. And so a lot of people that sign up for it don't really know what they're getting themselves into. We do treat people with CPAPs here too. We usually only recommend them in severe patients because there's so many other treatment options that are more user-friendly for patients to use.
There's a couple of key things there. I remember when I had a sleep study there years ago, they had you coming in, it's a big old prep, and it was a very uncomfortable room. They had some devices on me, which felt uncomfortable, the room was cold, and it wasn't my house, right? It wasn't my bed. So I woke up the next day and said, how do you feel? I said, horrible. And my score was bad, and they said, okay, here's your prescription for the CPAP machine. And that was it. It was like, okay. And it felt very compressed. So quick diagnosis, uncomfortable environment, and it was just like, we're going to give you a fix here. Go do it. But it was a weird experience. It was not very inviting to figure out, okay, I'm comfortable with this particular solution.
And we're at a point in technology now that the in-lab studies are really only needed for a couple of different types of patients. patients. You can't have a diagnosis for narcolepsy, which there aren't too many people in the world that have that, where they just fall asleep, on a whim. The other one is in order to diagnose it, you need to be videotaped, both for narcolepsy and restless leg syndrome. You would think by watching all the commercials on TV that everyone in America has restless leg syndrome, but really most people that have obstructive sleep apnea have periodic limb movements because their body's struggling to breathe. And so once you take care of the sleep apnea, majority of the time that goes away. So yeah, your experience is pretty normal. People that do spend the night in the lab, we often hear that back from them. There's 22 wires that have to be attached to you with this goopy stuff that goes in your hair and all over your body. You are being videotaped at night. You can't really move around that much. You can only really sleep on your back, and then it's not your bed, so it's rather difficult to get to use this. So yeah, definitely don't feel alone there. And in the past, that was really the only option that we had. But literally, home sleep studies have been out and being used in America since the mid 80s, early 90s, depending on the type. And they've really progressed over time to be better and better.
I think it's critical. When we talk about innovation, we talk about it's always getting better. But then the established players have to actually let people know something's changing, something's better. You ask people off the street, they're thinking, you know what? I don't want to go do a sleep study. I had a friend who did it 20 years ago, 10 years. So it's like, things have changed, but then they may not know about those changes. So this whole process of educate the population continuously, let them know the other ways, it's not as bad as it used to be. And then we get that whole thing we talk about warning people, or just educating them what that process looks like for putting the machinery or using the oral appliance. I think a lot of providers out there just kind of rushing through the process.
Yes, and you brought up a very interesting point, and that is educating the masses has been the pinch point with people in America getting treated. And there's two things kind of making it more common these days than what it used to be. One is the obesity epidemic, which it seems like we're actually making some strides with the GLP-1s and people realizing that their diet shouldn't be 90% carbohydrates, that we actually need to balance the diet out. More protein is usually better for people. We recommend women to get at least 70 grams of protein, men to get at least 80 grams of protein a day. And by reshuffling that deck, basically, living a long, healthy life is easier than if you don't calculate it and don't really know what you're eating. And that tends to get harder and harder as we get older. So when we talk about people's experience and testing, most people, the reason why they don't want to be diagnosed or don't want to mention to their doctor is they always feel like they have to spend the night in the lab. That next, they feel like after the lab, they're going to get a CPAP. And so I have patients that walk in the door all the time that don't know that there are other treatment modalities to treat this, and have no clue that when you do get a diagnosis that you do have options. Now, if you pick the wrong option and insurance pays for that wrong option, then you don't have access to any more durable medical equipment for another 5 years oftentimes. So it's really important to know which treatment modality is best for you and not be quick to just take a prescription, but actually be able to sit down, understand your airway, and know which options are best for you.
And that does lead to a lot of the frustration with people. We've got a lot of new technology, a lot of new scientific discoveries, and with these innovative companies like you guys are coming out there doing something different, but people don't know about it.
Yes.
Right. So we get these bad experiences, they talk among themselves. So if you sit in the coffee shop and hear this, you'd be like, oh, you're like, let me have a conversation with you. Well, so we start to think about, you build your business to help get this message out. You see the impact, right? It's more than just, it's inconvenient because it's noisy. You have these serious health considerations. And in traditional medicine, it's like, your doc heard you, but he only got 10 minutes with you, and he went through the list and, hey, lose some weight, try your CPAP, and come back the next year. It's like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So I know you seem like you spend a lot of time focusing on this experience, this education, and obviously you started to add the whole thing with this attacking the weight loss issue, the weight gain, losing some weight additional to the appliances or the CPAP issue. So talk about this holistic approach to say, listen, we're still locked in on the problem, not the technique or the appliance or the thing. You want to see people like actually breathing a good night's sleep.
Sure. Well, what we often will see is people that are holding an extra 40 to 50 pounds will jump a level. So let's say without the weight, they're mild, which means there's 5 to 14 events per hour. They're going without oxygen for 10 seconds or more. With that extra weight, they're either moderate or severe. And so by lowering their body weight, it can make the disease easier to treat. The pressure of the CPAP would be less, or the positioning of the jaw would be less forward because we're making the neck size smaller. So just think of the body as a three-dimensional structure, and by losing weight, it puts less pressure on your airway, so you're able to breathe easier. The other part of this that people often forget about, we talked about the people that need to lose some weight. The other group of these are either in utero, which means when your body was forming, or as a kid or a teenager. What we often see is that when the head comes together into two main pieces, that's what forms the right and the left hemispheres of the brain. That's what forms your septum. So if you have a deviated septum, one side of your head shut off early. And then right in the middle of all of that is your airway. So if one side or both sides didn't form to their full potential, then you already start off with a smaller airway. Most people that have that present their whole life with severe allergies. Their resting pulse rate, instead of being in the high 60s, low 70s at rest, it's more in the 80s. And so a lifetime of that for people that are diagnosed with exercise-induced asthma, or they have trouble breathing, then that's what I would suggest is. So we start off with a CT. We want to be able to see if we need to modify the structure at all. Structure can be modified by either epigenetics, which is reactivating your stem cells to be able to grow to your full potential. That's a different type of appliance you wear only in your palate, only at night, and over a 2-year period, it regrows your airway to its full potential. The other option is surgery. So you can go to your ENT, correct for a deviated septum, enlarge turbinates. They can, take down some of that tissue. Surgery works well. It's quicker, but the lasting results aren't always there. Sometimes it needs to be repeated about every 3 to 5 years for your airway to stay open. So if we change that structurally, then that doesn't come back when it stays open. So when I say there's lots of different treatment options, we talked about CPAP, we just talked about epigenetics, we talked about oral devices that move your jaw forward and keep open the airway, we talked about weight loss, but there are also various lasers that you can do that will shrink the tissue in the back of your throat, and actually shrink part of the tongue. And those can benefit to help tighten up that tissue from all those years of snoring, pulling that tissue and making it longer. So ultimately, at the end of all of this, having a conversation and being able to personally, you as the patient, pick what you'd like to start with. Oftentimes, starting with something much like you've experienced gets you part of the way there. If you are severe enough, then there's dual or tri or quad therapy. But ultimately, we're trying to make people the most fit that they can be and give them the best chance to be on the least amount of medications and have the least amount of medical problems as they age.
I think it's kind of critical to start to think about the root cause of a lot of diseases and health issues, inability to get a good night's sleep. And you say you're losing oxygen to your brain, you stop breathing multiple times during the day. People hear that are like, whoa, what is it? No, it's just noise at night, right? You stop breathing multiple times.
Yes.
Essentially. And you see it after a study, it's like, that's scary. And most people don't realize that. It's like, I'm just a little bit tired in the morning, I'll do some coffee, I'll do something else, I'll supplement it. They push through year after year after year. Mm-hmm. And then they go to the regular traditional healthcare system, they pass you through. And everybody keeps passing through the problem.
Yes.
So it's not
do you know the reason for that? Modern medicine, at least in America, is set up to be reactive instead of proactive. Insurance companies don't mind putting you on a medication or taking care of what ailment presents, but there's not a lot of workup on people on preventing any of this because there's no money in it. And so that's, and unfortunately, that's how America works. If you've heard of a functional medicine doctor, those doctors are there for more of the preventive side. So they do labs more frequently. They do different series of labs that really look at inflammatory markers in your body. They look at your cortisol levels. They look at things that maybe aren't included in a normal physical. And then they make adjustments. So if you have high interleukin 1 or you have any of those inflammatory sort of markers that come back, then instead of putting you on, let's say, a statin or high blood pressure medicine or whatever else is found in that, they might back up and say, all right, what diet do you have? Write down everything that you eat for the next week. We're going to talk about it. They might talk to you about, have you seen your dentist in a while? Because if your inflammatory markers are high, you might have periodontal disease or an infection somewhere in your body. And that can oftentimes be missed because we're not really considering the body to be one long operating tube and that everything in the body affects everything else. And so really taking the time with your provider and understanding and being an advocate for your health instead of just I got my physical, I got in and got out in eight minutes, which is the national average for seeing your doctor. And you get best friends with your nurse practitioner, medical assistant. Yes. But unfortunately, I think that's how a lot of the body systems get missed and why people are increasing aging and why for the first time in American history, we're actually seeing the age that the general population pass away, we're seeing it go down instead of up.
Well, one of the things we talk about in Frontline Innovation is this concept of all the metrics could look good, the numbers could look good. Like you said, when you got your physical, the doc saw you look good, you got your dental, you look good. You're not snoring as much maybe sometimes with a CPAP. But it can be very deceiving when we stop and look at it, it's like, this body isn't healthy. And we have professionals passing through people where there's more that can be done to improve their conditions of their lives that we're not actually doing. So I like people who, like you, are going out there and say, hold on, we know better about this, right? And I can probably see your way you walk, and I can maybe notice you got a little extra in the front. I know you're probably struggling.
Yeah.
The key thing is figuring out more than likely why they're struggling, why they're having trouble getting to sleep, what are these conditions, and then breaking these problems down in the way you can attack the different symptoms and eventually get to the root cause. That leads to something you alluded to earlier about the incentive structure, right? So your business has to be structured to deliver this, and then your patient got to be able to afford it. Mm-hmm. So if they're being reimbursed from healthcare for the wrong types of treatments, that can lead them down the wrong path.
Yes.
So it's like there's an opportunity here to work with legislation, work with the administrative state to figure out ways to do reimbursement. And obviously on your side to help this education process to say there's a different way to see if we can actually finance this. And obviously you guys help people from your standpoint to say we can get healthier and make money off of it.
Sure.
Yeah. Right now it's unhealthy and people making money off of it. So that's a problem there.
And there's a few things that don't make a lot of sense for being a person, even in the field, that understands insurance. Most people, first of all, either get their insurance from their employer, or they buy it on the marketplace, or they own a company where they buy their own insurance. So those are kind of the three buckets of people that we see that aren't on Medicare, right, or Medicaid. And so when patients come in, a lot of times they're just used to whipping their card out, handing it over, and saying, bill me. The difference with durable medical equipment is if you haven't met your deductible, that has to be paid first before we can send in your claim. Now, the good news is the majority of the people that have a large deductible at the beginning of the year, if we put this towards it, then everything else through every other doctor visit is typically covered. Then with durable medical equipment, they also never covered it 100%, whether it's a CPAP or an oral device. There's always a copay or co-insurance that factors into this, and that can range from 10% to 60%, depending on the plan. And so I think there's kind of a misconception that when people come in and they have a diagnosis, they feel like it's just going to be covered. And unfortunately, the majority of our patients, that's not the case because of the plan that they're on. Insurance wasn't what it was. You know, they want to assist you in the payments from your monthly payments from your employer, and maybe out of your check on a biweekly or monthly basis. But it doesn't, there's no plan out there that really covers anything at 100% anymore when it comes to CPAPs or oral devices. And then a few of the treatments aren't covered because there's just not enough treating physicians or doctors nationwide that are doing that service. So we talked about epigenetics. That's takes 2 to 3 years to regrow that nasal floor, open up your airway permanently. There's not even a code for it.
Oh, wow.
And
building code?
yes. And so there's no way to really get reimbursement from your insurance for that. But I kind of describe it as braces. You know, even if you have dental insurance that has a braces component, it usually maxes out at $1,000 or $1,500. And we all know that braces can cost $6,000 to $8,000. This is similar to that in that you either finance it or you make payments. We also never want people's budget or income level to really get involved in the treatment that they need. So please know that that's been worked out so that every patient has the ability to say yes if they need to.
Yeah. That's critical because people think innovation is just a new technique, a new technology. We also have to think about the innovative financial models here to make sure that the person who needs the help can actually afford it and can get it. And then the businesses who are out there doing the good work have a way to keep the lights on, right? It's enough coming in.
Yes.
When I find out you got the nice breezy food over here making all the money and they got a cheap price, I'm gonna do that. I want to eat healthier, but your price is higher. But we've seen a lot of innovation recently where healthier food can cost maybe not as much, or maybe on par, or maybe not as exponentially more expensive to be healthy. I think in the past it was like, and being healthier could be more expensive. But when you got the bill for being unhealthy as a country, it's very, very expensive to have this many people being unhealthy. So basically, the resources are there, the money's there. We just need to reallocate it. That takes a little innovation in the way you think about it, what the legislation's on, where the companies go out there and market. Right now, people might walk by your door. But I like one of the things you have in the front about having a good night's sleep. That's a good way, initial way to say, hey, somebody is thinking about that because they just got their coffee and they're tired and they walk in. So let's talk about that, like it's time to change that curve, like indication, like maybe it is affordable, maybe it's in reach, maybe if I walk down here, I can walk in this door and that can change my life.
Sleep studies used to be $4,000 to $5,000 to spend the night in the lab. That's obviously over the years have gotten more economical, but it's still, if you spend the night in the lab, about $3,000. Your deductible has to be met, and you have to pay a portion of that. But the take-home tests have gotten very economical. I mean, we offer ours for below $400 a night, which is a tenth of the cost, and it gives us over 90% of the same data as an in-lab study. We feel, and in the field, even a lot of board certified sleep physicians nationwide feel that that at-home study, because you're in your bed and your environment, your pillow, is more accurate than when you spend the night in a lab. The other interesting thing to discuss is a lot of the insurance companies aren't keeping up with the trends. So I'll use an example. Not many people know this, but Medicare, is definitely still running. Everything is a go with that. But who manages Medicare a lot of times? That's Blue Cross Blue Shield or UHC, United Healthcare. For those various insurances, they have not adopted and kept up with science. So one example is there are different types of CPAPs, there are different types of oral devices. The newer ones are not covered on some of those plans because they haven't changed their rules since the 1980s. So I always tell people, do you want the Motorola flip phone or do you want the new iPhone?
Yes.
Because that is what we're talking about it. You can have a CPAP that is not smart at all. It just blows air all night, and you can have ones that will automatically ramp up and ramp down. There's ones that connect directly to your cell phone and give you a report every single morning. It'll tell you about mask fit and if there's leaks. There are oral devices with smart technology in them now that are no longer connected with a metal bar on the side. There's actually no connections in the newer ones. We can put a smart chip in it that will tell us if you're wearing it or not, which is good for our pilots, our UPS drivers, our truck drivers. We have to be able to tell that they're being treated, whether it's a CPAP or an oral device. We also have smart technology now in oral devices that will tell what your oxygen levels are. And I think as this trend goes by, if we don't want to make things more bulky that we have to wear in our mouth, then maybe it turns into a ring, much like, everyone knows about a couple of various rings that are out on the market now. And they check for your oxygen, your pulse. I presume in the next 10 years, we'll have a ring or a watch that will be able to check our blood pressure, will be able to tell us what our stress level is through our sweat. There's just so many opportunities that I think that our phones will change into more of a, hey, I noticed this. Instead of saying you had sleep apnea or you have these trends that I'm seeing, it'll say more of, this is what I observed in the last hour. What were you doing differently? This was too much stress. Your cortisol level went up. I think it'll be very intuitive. And it'll say, for the next 10 minutes, do deeper breaths. Let's get that heart rate down. And the more intuitive AI-driven medical models is also going to make us healthier in the landscape where doctors have less and less time to spend with you.
You almost suggest that based off the numbers remotely, you probably had a good night's sleep. You're probably doing good today just off the measures. Mm-hmm. Even if they walk through the door, in fact, I'm not feeling good. I know. I have to look on that. I had an idea what you were doing there. You watched too much news right before you went to bed. I know you did an Uber Eats and got some greasy food right before you sleep. There's some things we know we can help modify behavior.
Yeah.
I think that's the powerful thing here.
Yeah, and I think long term too, when you get this data, there also should be an improved list of doctors nationwide that is maybe hooked to the ring or the watch that says, if you don't have this type of doctor, this is who we recommend. I think everything's going to be integrated as we move forward.
Really improving that human experience. Right now, you have to manually go look for stuff, get a referral from a friend, a recommendation from somebody else. Mm-hmm. Hope that person refer you to the right doc, the right company. There's a lot of manual work on the actual patient. I think we might be better with this.
Oh yeah. And ChatGPT is changing so quickly now. If your listeners haven't kept up with it, the paid version, the non-paid version, is what the paid version was like two years ago. The paid version, actually, you can put in whole sentences. You can ask it. I actually just put together a PowerPoint presentation I'm giving next week. I put in the sources that I wanted ChatGPT to pull from, the medical journals, and said this was the topic. create 60 to 80 slides, keep it at an 8th grade level. And you can do all of this, and literally, it spit me out a pretty decent PowerPoint presentation in about less than an hour's worth of work, which ultimately used to take me, a couple of days to get done. And then you can also plug it in and say, all right, now that you have this, make it look more sleek, or put in, you can actually say, put in special effects into each slide, or take 10 slides and put special effects. And so you've seen those slides that kind of bing, bong, bong, and then they'll open up big. It's amazing in the time that we're in right now. And doctors that aren't on board with AI, you'll be able to ask it all the questions you want to, but also to be able to, it'll be able to take all the data that's out there and comb through it and give you the answer based on the doctors in your area, and then you can better pick who your primary care doctor is or provider.
I can imagine more customized now. You're coming in and like that presentation is now tailored to that particular patient who's coming in. One is an 85-year-old grandma, another is a 20-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
One speaks English, one speaks Spanish. And in the past, that would be oh my God, that's 4 or 5 different personas. Now it's like, I'll adapt this, and you sit down, the presentation is adapted for you.
Yes.
So like, I understand the language, it's being translated for you in 100 different languages. Or the grade levels you mentioned there, which one to do, or that need to be more exciting for this 30-year-old to get them excited about getting on the plan. You should choose what I'm presenting to them.
Yes, and I think we're going to definitely use that to our advantage in the future on both sides. Without having proper data or labs, a lot of times it's a guess. So the way you're taught in medical school and in dental school is establish what the chief complaint is. So why are you here? Create a differential diagnosis based on questions that you've asked the patient. Usually it's anywhere between 3 to 40 things that it can be. And then combine them into what's most possible. So usually like the top 2 or 3. And then decide what you're going to start with first. Well, that's what we're taught. But in the future, all of that can be plugged into AI. And AI then could have more of an overview into your health history, previous visits with other doctors. You could upload your own information. And by looking at trends over the last 10 to 20 years that no doctor has time to really evaluate, they'll be able to take that big list and shrink it down for the doctor and say, I think this is, due to these reasons, I think this is which way we need to move forward. And I think it's going to be a useful tool. And I'm encouraged in this landscape to be able to see how everything's going to change.
I love it. So from a simple, I didn't get a good night's sleep, to walking by and saying, hey, we walk on in here. And by the way, the lobby is interesting because I was asking before about this artwork. Like, the traditional doctor's office has that TV with the price right on, magazines. So tell the audience what you got up on your wall.
Yes, we didn't want something to really detract from the patient experience. When you walk in, we want you to be able to look around, be able to tell that we do a couple of different types of home sleep studies. So that's what's on the wall. You look at weight loss products, and it's a starting of the conversation. A lot of people will walk in and say, well, I thought this was a sleep center. Why do you guys have weight loss products? So it kind of gets that conversation started. We also are, keep Boston weird or like to support local. And so we do pick about on a quarterly basis a local artist to come in and hang up their stuff on the wall. And so if you're not here to look at products and you don't really necessarily want to look around too much, at least there's some nice artwork on the wall. And then we wanted to be very personal with our patients. So you're not going to see a big glass wall or have to knock to get somebody or ring a bell. I mean, we're here at the front, and we oftentimes want to really develop a strong rapport with all of our patients and keep them on for years to come.
Spoken like a true innovator, out there solving problems. I'm telling people, if you really, really keep hearing that same complaint and you have the ability, go out there and break this problem down, figure out a way to actually attack it. So I love what you guys are doing there.
Thank you. One last thing, if we have time.
Yes.
We also see the great need as we do move forward through people's health. We talked about inflammatory markers, but as we age, a lot of those systems get weaker. They're not as efficient. That can be influenced by sleep, but that also could be the normal aging process or the type of foods that we're eating. And so through a program called polypeptides, which the body automatically makes in your body to run the systems, if we do blood work and we notice those are issues, in the future, not currently, but in the future, there are about 70 to 80 polypeptides that are out there that are approved by the federal government. And everyone already knows the first batch, which are the GLP-1s that help people lose weight. But just really think about there's a polypeptide for everything. And so if you have trouble gaining muscle as you get older, there's one for that, desmorelin. If you have trouble with recovery, there's several different ones that will help you along the way with that. If you have an injury, there are a few that will shorten your healing time in half. And so that's becoming more and more common. And I do feel that there's going to be several that are going to help benefit people's sleep too in the future. So don't always think that it's a pill you're going to have to take, or it's a CPAP that you have to wear. As this discipline morphs, we'll probably see more and more options for patients getting the help that they need.
I love it, man. Anything else we haven't talked about that you want to mention before we close out?
I think just letting people know that if you are interested in putting your health first, I would love everyone that's listening to this to at least go to our website, sleepcyclecenters.com, and take our screening tool. Again, it's 90% accurate, identifying who has sleep apnea and who doesn't. Our wonderful staff will reach out to you, and our team will meet with you, talk about options. Usually we start out with a sleep study, and then after that, we'll go over your CTs, your sleep study, really let you know what your airway looks like, and if we see anything. And then from there, we often talk about all your treatment options. The patient in our office picks the treatment option they'd like to start with. Sometimes it's due to cost. Sometimes it's due to what they'd like to try first. But in your case, if you're sharing your story, you had a sleep study. You came in, we made you an oral device. You got quite a bit of help from just that. But then losing the weight takes you to the home run in health and what you're looking for.
Down 25 or 30 pounds, somewhere around there.
30 pounds, that's awesome. You're looking great.
Yeah, appreciate that.
And are you feeling good?
I'm feeling great.
Awesome. All
Feeling
right.
younger now.
And that's pretty common with weight loss and treating sleep apnea for people who not have trouble getting up from the couch anymore and having more energy throughout the day. And without pairing both of those together, some of the benefits aren't felt.
It definitely worth the effort and the investment. So I really appreciate all of that. So
Thank you very much. And thanks for having me on your show.
That has been another episode of the Frontline Innovation Podcast. Thank you for your time. Innovation doesn't end with a great idea or a product on the shelf. It continues through the realization that someone's problem was fixed after they used the solution. If this episode helped you see a problem more clearly or think differently about how solutions reach the front lines, share it with someone who's doing that work alongside you. And if you're building, designing, selling, or supporting solutions meant to last, subscribe to the Frontline Innovation Podcast, the voice of problem solvers. Because progress isn't driven by ideals alone. It's built by those willing to dismantle problems and do the work that follows. Until next time, stay on the front line and go dismantle a human problem.